Hi, this is Nicholas Bell with IONCINEMA, here to share my top 10 favorite films from the first half of 2020. So this will include films that have premiered before the pandemic broke out and shut down theaters, as well as new streaming releases. Anything on the list should be available to see somewhere on some streaming platform at this point. And if you want to see more in-depth coverage of any of these titles, please visit IONCINEMA.com or IONCINEMA's YouTube channel. So number 10 is, I have a tie, the first of which is A White Day, which is the sophomore film directed by Iceland's Hlynur Palmason and stars Ingvar Sigurdsson in an excellent leading role as a cop whose wife has recently died, and he discovers that she was having an affair, much to his surprise. It premiered at the 2019 Cannes Film Festival in Critics Week, and as I said, it's Palmason's second feature. His 2017 debut, Winter's Brother, won Best Actor at Locarno. My tie selection for number 10 is the directorial debut of Annie Silverstein with Bull, which also premiered at Cannes 2019 in Un Certain Regard. It stars an excellent Rob Morgan in a lead role as an aging bullfighter who has to contend with a young white girl in his life, played by Amber Havard. While I do find Havard's performance kind of inert, Rob Morgan is the one to watch for in this film, especially if you've seen him in anything like Mudbound or The Last Black Man in San Francisco. He's also joined by Yolanda Ross, who is only in a handful of scenes, but makes for a very interesting, if sometimes familiar, framed story. My number 9 selection is the 7th feature directed by Kôji Fukada, A Girl Missing, which played in competition at the 2019 Locarno Film Festival. It's got an excellent lead performance by Mariko Sutsi as a caregiver who lives with a family whose daughter is kidnapped by her son, and the eventual fallout from there. It's a psychological slow burn, but I loved every minute of it. It was released by Film Movement. Number 8 is Swallow, released by IFC. It premiered at the 2019 Tribeca Film Festival. An excellent lead performance from Haley Bennett in the directorial debut of Carlo Mirabella-Davis. It's about a young woman who marries above her class into a wealthy family who are very restrictive, and when she becomes pregnant, she starts developing a disorder where she swallows sharp objects as a way to regain some agency. It's definitely must-see feminist themed horror cinema. Number 7, I have Kitty Green's The Assistant, which premiered at Sundance and also went to Berlin. It stars Julia Garner of Ozark in an excellent lead performance as a young woman named Jane who works for a powerful film executive who is kind of Weinstein by him. It's very drab, very somber film. It's certainly not for everybody, but nevertheless important to see. It is released by Bleecker Street. Number 6, I have Kelly Reichardt's First Cow, which actually premiered at the 2019 New York Film Festival, but competed in Berlin. It stars John Magaro and Orion Lee as a pair of fur trappers on the Oregon Trail who end up stealing the cow of the milk of a cow, of the only cow in the county who's owned by Toby Jones, and using the milk to make scrumptious delicacies, and they are later punished for their crime. If you're familiar with any of Reichardt's films, I believe this is their 7th feature. This is definitely a treat. It's distributed by A24. At number 5, I have the 3rd feature by Kleber Mendonça Filho with Bacurau, which was co-directed by Juliano Dornelles, released by Kino Lorber. It premiered in competition at the 2019 Cannes Film Festival, where it picked up the jury prize. Reunites Filho with his Aquarius star Sonia Braga, and also look for Udo Kier. It's about the titular town, which means Nighthawk, in rural Brazil, who wake up to find themselves under siege by a group of racist Americans that are playing the most dangerous game with them, but they fight back. There's a lot that you might not realize if you're not from Brazil going on in the periphery of the plot mechanics, but it's definitely worth a watch, if not a few rewatches. At number 4, I have the 5th feature directed by Josephine Decker, which is kind of an off-the-wall biopic on celebrated author Shirley Jackson, who of course wrote the short story The Lottery, Haunting of Hill House, We've Always Lived in the Castle, The Bird's Nest, etc. Elizabeth Moss is galvanizing as the mentally unraveling Shirley. Her husband, played by Michael Stuhlbarg, who's a professor, has hired an intern to help him, played by Logan Lerman, and meanwhile Logan's young wife, Odessa Young, is stuck at the house with Shirley, and they kind of develop a love-hate relationship. Consistently watchable, premiered at Sundance, went to Berlin, distributed by Neon. At number 3, I have The Surrogate, the directorial debut of Jeremy Hirsch, which is distributed by Monument Releasing. It would have premiered at the 2020 South by Southwest Film Festival. It gives an excellent lead performance to newcomer Jasmine Batchelor, who better be remembered by the end of the year by some kind of guild or award ceremony. She basically plays a young, affluent black woman who decides to be a surrogate for her gay best friends, and then realizes that the fetus has the Down syndrome chromosome, and the moral dilemma that the precipice they're all brought to. At number 2, I have Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, the third feature directed by Eliza Hittman. Competed at Sundance, Berlin, picked up prizes both of those places, distributed by Focus Features. Excellent performances by newcomers Sydney Flanagan and Talia Ryder as a pair of friends who travel from Pennsylvania, minors who travel from Pennsylvania to New York to seek an abortion. Definitely something, a neo-realist slice of cinema that needs to be seen by everyone, I think, especially with how everything's going in this country. And at number 1, I have DAU.Natasha, which is of course the first installment of the DAO tangential narratives that Ilya Karjanovsky is being released from his monolithic project that filmed from 2005 to 2011. And now finally, after hundreds of editing hours and various installations in other cities, we're starting to see the unspooling of these films. So this premiered at the 2020 Berlin Film Festival, picked up a Best Cinematography Award for Jürgen Jürges, better known for lensing Code Unknown by Michael Haneke. A phenomenal lead performance by Natalia Berezhnaya as Natasha. It's set in a 1950s canteen which she runs in the Soviet Union, and it's a series of drunken interludes that kind of crash land into terrible, torturous interrogation on her part. It's a portrait it ends up being a very bleak portrait of fascism and totalitarianism, and I believe is also important to see in our current times. The filmmaking methods have come under fire. This was co-directed by Yekaterina Ortel. I do remember the Russian press wrote an open letter to the Berlin Film Festival in anger about why this film was included. It hasn't been released except for Karjanovsky is releasing all of these films now online. So you can go to DAU.movie/en and pay to see various installments of the DAO films. As he stated, this was a film made in isolation for people in isolation. And if there's anything you can do while you're stuck at home in the pandemic, catch up on DAO. But that's it. Thank you.
Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.